Hey all, Ethan here. This is the behind the scenes of Dashcam, which is my submission to the 2020 Candy Bowl. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is where this film was actually filmed. It was done on some access roads behind a local airport, and the reason we did it back there specifically was so we could, stop, turn around, uh, make U-turns, and really just sort of get away with a little more not reckless driving, but things you wouldn't normally do on a populated street. Nothing, of course, nothing that broke the law or anything. I think the fastest we went while filming this was maybe 50 or 60 miles an hour. And some of the roads back there you can go 50 or 60 miles an hour. But a lot of them are used heavily by log trucking and things like that. We were in a very secluded part of the country, and yeah, it's not uncommon to see people back there hunting and doing things like that. Luckily, that hasn't quite begun, so I was again able to get away with a little more without arousing too much suspicion, having people kind of come out of the woodwork, come out of their houses, and try to figure out what's going on. Until a little later on, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But it was an old access, as I said, it was an old access road behind an airport, and this first shot here was actually filmed on a piece of land a friend of mine owned. In fact, little did I know until I got up there, they were having a bonfire that night. Which, if you look on the left of the screen, you can kind of see some of the light from the fire, and those headlights there are actually my friend's truck, who I did not know was out. In fact, right when you pass, you can see him standing next to the truck, and I didn't realize it was him until after the shot. I stopped and got out, and sure enough, it was him. Right there, you can see his legs. And then it cuts to a little later. This shot was done at like 2 in the morning. The previous shot was at like 9 or 9:30 or something like that. By the way, that staticky sound was actually taken off of recorded as I was editing this, off of an old shortwave radio, which works for what I needed it to. Anyway, the background track, as I'm sure everyone's already figured out at this point, was the infamous, was it 37, 38? I can't remember. CBS Orson Welles War of the Worlds broadcast. And originally, I actually filmed this film twice. And the original one, which I used for just test footage, there was nothing in the background, and it sounded stupid. So I filmed it again, playing the War of the Worlds thing over the car stereo, and it sounded great. Let's see, what is there anything interesting about this shot? Which shot is this? Okay, yeah, this is another shot that was done after I'd filmed everything else, because these this film was filmed over a span of 2 days, and the first night it was dumping rain. And initially I'm thinking, like, okay, that'll make it atmospheric, that'll make it interesting. Well, that is probably true, but when the camera is up against the windshield, which is covered in rain, it's going to focus in on the rain on the windshield, and all you're going to see is a blurry image and some raindrops, and it looks stupid. So I had to go back the next night and reshoot like the entire first half of this film. And this isn't, by the way, this here is not part of the access road. This is a stretch of road close to that area, but on a much more populated road. It was just a shot of me driving up into the gas station and pulling in, and of course all of this was filmed on a cell phone, but it was held on a mount, suction cupped to the windshield, so I wasn't driving and trying to fiddle with this phone. There was, of course, I did have to reach up and hit record and stop, but of course you can do it with one finger. And there were a few times where I have to adjust it. But other than that, and of course I would take the phone off occasionally to, if I got a call or something like that, or text, I had to respond. Um, as well as just to review footage. So it's not always in the same spot, but it's pretty close. This shot right here was infuriating because this was also done on a still pretty, at the that time at night, deserted road, but there were still people out and about. And this was shot in this small unincorporated town called Whiten, or at least this particular scene. It was sort of between Whiten, Pittsville, Salisbury, sort of that in that general area. Parsonsburg, which is a part of Delmarva. And as you can see, this was filmed on the night when it was raining, so there's a little bit of rain on the windshield. But what made this so annoying is that it took me like 5 shots to get it, because the people who live in this area, God bless them, they're all a bunch of sort of salted earth type people, a lot of farmers, a lot of mechanics. And, they're always willing to help, but almost to a fault, because I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to get this shot, and every other time I would try to get it, somebody would pull up in a pickup truck, stick their, head out the window and be like, "You all right? You need help? You need a jump?" I'm like, "No, I'm good, I'm good." "What's the mask for?" "No, it's a little film project." You know, and God bless them, they're just trying to help, but it got old pretty quick. And then, yeah, this was the one shot where I think we might have gone a bit too fast. Everything else was at or just above the speed limit, which was kind of weird, because in order to create the illusion that we were actually like racing down the road, all of the non-running away shots had to be done at like 20 miles an hour, or 20, 30, somewhere in there, just depending on what the speed limit actually was. And I think the speed limit on that particular road was like 55, which in Maryland is just sort of the go-to, highway speed limit for just sort of backcountry driving. And then we got up to, let's see, is there anything interesting about this? No, not really, just me driving around. But yeah, there was a little bit of fast driving. The film was done in a 2007 Mustang, so we were able to make it seem like we were going a little faster than we were actually going. The car, we took the mufflers out to make it seem faster. But the car was pretty much, with the exception of the catalytic converters, pretty much straight pipe at that point. And we gave the car a bit of a beating, and by the end of this, it just looked like hell. Oh, this is a scene where it breaks down. And then, so we go off into the road, it breaks down. And this was done in multiple shots, because the original plan was, on most cars, there's a way you can shut off the fuel pump. There's like a little switch or a little like emergency switch underneath the dashboard or driver's side, that would cut off if you were in a wreck. And you can usually shove like a screwdriver in there and pop a switch up, and then you'll have just enough fuel in the line to move like a quarter mile, and it'll run out of gas. Both the people in the scene, by the way, are me, and I am holding a knife. I swear, you just can't see it. I know somebody's gonna ask, yeah, there's been at least one other case where I've used this outfit for film projects, so if it looks familiar, that's probably why. But yeah, anyway, back on the whole like gas fuel pump thing, I figured out that there's a fuse you can pull under the dashboard to kind of get the same effect, where it'll shut off the fuel pump, and at that point you can't start the car, because it also shuts off power to the ignition system. All you get is a starter, so we had to do it in multiple shots, and we could not move the car, which was very annoying. And then he gets in and he starts the car, and at this point we've put the fuse back in, the car starts up normal, and I don't know why, but my first impulse is to rev the engine to hell and back, and then a single drop of water falls on the windshield and blurs the screen. So, but again, we had to do this all in one go, because if we move the car, it would kind of create a continuity error, because it wouldn't, it would clearly not be in the same place, and we all wanted to have it right in the same spot, and we were running out of time. Okay, and then there's this scene where he's, driving away, and I think this is the part where Orson Welles is kind of wrapping up the broadcast and going on about, like, uh, we've completely destroyed. So we did the next best thing. We completely destroyed the CBS in the world, but you'll be relieved to know that both institutions are still open for business, which kind of, is not entirely true right now, but it was kind of an interesting little thing we noticed, where it's almost ironic that we played that bit, considering the times, which we did not do on purpose. I know somebody's gonna get on me for saying, like, oh, that's a dark joke, but I swear that I forgot that was there. But so yeah, so that's pretty much the rundown of the film. Just a little, like I said in the description, I've never actually done this before, and I'm kind of glad that I got the opportunity to do this. So if it seems a little rough and sort of, cut and dry, it's because it is. This is not a high dollar production. I'm sure I'm going up against people who, well, not going up against, but I'm sure I'm going to be featured alongside people who have a lot more experience than I do. But yeah, that was pretty much Dashcam. There are actually a few more points I can give on this film, mostly to do with scrapped ideas. For example, the stabbing scene in the forest. That was originally going to be a shootout. And yeah, I know it. I ended up scrapping that idea for pretty obvious reasons, mostly to do with the fact that I'm not, entirely sure that would have been entirely appropriate, because, we're trying to keep this clean. I know Nick was saying, please don't put me in an awkward position where I have to tell you it's not appropriate, But, I went through basically hell trying to figure out if there was any legal way I could fire a gun, even if it's a blank, on somebody else's property. And the sort of compromise ended up coming to, and I contacted the Wycomico County Sheriff, and asked him about this, which is why there's that little, like, special thanks to Wycomico County Sheriff, or Wycomico County Sheriff's Department in the description. But I ended up contacting Wycomico County Sheriff about this, and he basically said it's fine as long as it is either on your own property or you have the permission of the property owner, and it can't be more than 300. It has to be at least 300 feet from a residential dwelling or church, or school. And the gun we were going to use was actually a muzzle loader, a revolver, 1851 Navy revolver, which is a Civil War era gun. It's reproduction, obviously, because I had no idea where I'd get an original one. But we the idea was we would pack it full of powder as you normally would and fire it, and we'd put everything except a actual musket ball in it. And I kind of experimented with that on my own property, and just trying to see if I can get a nice big like flash out of the barrel. And I figured out, if you mix a tad bit of magnesium powder into gunpowder, of course magnesium, for anyone who paid more attention than I did in high school chemistry, when you get it hot, it flares up. So when you put it in gunpowder and light it off, it makes this gorgeous like fireball out the end of the barrel. And there was at least one test shot I did, which I'll have to put in here somewhere, of me on my friend's property, who also owned that farm earlier, doing that same stabbing scene, but instead it's with the gun, and I only had percussion caps in it. There was no ball or powder or anything like that. It was just a cap. But other than that, and just, a handful of shots we either were, did and didn't use, or did and had to reshoot, and, a lot of which was was just driving scenes that really didn't add to the story or anything like that, or or something like that, as well as some footage that just didn't come out particularly well. There was not a whole lot that was scrapped from this film. Pretty much what you see is what was done, with the exception of the before mentioned, test version of the film, which I may or may not upload later. I don't know, but yeah, that was pretty much it. It was pretty straightforward, pretty, you know, cut and dry. We kind of knew where we were going with it. We knew what we wanted to have happen and when we wanted it to happen, and that was pretty much it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to go off of, or that's pretty much all I have to say right now. Um, Thanks for checking out the film. Thanks for featuring me in the Candy Bowl, and happy Halloween.